Hello, Gita. Hello, Maria. Welcome. Hello, Rebecca. And another Maria. Dan, welcome. Dan is already saying that this is the best sutta. Yes, it is one of my favorites. Morning, Gregory. Welcome, Brian. Welcome, Wasabi. Afternoon, Matthias. Morning, Dharma learner. Good to see some friends from Morning Monastery Experience here. All right. Hello, Scott. Welcome. I think we can get started. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Morning, Jayantha. All right. So today we continue on with the theme of engaging in communal harmony, I guess, if you want to say, and dealing with others in a skillful way. Hello, Madeline. Welcome. They were on Majjhima Nikaya number 128, Corruptions. And the link is in the description if you would like to follow along. So I have heard. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Kosambi in Gosita's monastery. Now at that time, the mendicants of Kosambi were arguing, quarreling, and disputing, continually wounding each other with barbed words. Or as Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation says, wounding each other with verbal daggers. I quite like that translation. The imagery of monks throwing verbal daggers at each other. This is quite funny. But this is one of those rare times, usually you see people are amazed at how the monks are so quiet and nobody's even clearing their throat. So peaceful, so wonderful. But here we start out with monastics having a go at each other. Hello, Richard. Welcome. Then a mendicant went up to the Buddha, bowed, stood to one side, and told him what was happening, adding, "Please, sir, go to those mendicants out of compassion." It's like one of the children went to dad and said, "Dad, the children are fighting. Please help them out." The Buddha consented with silence. Then the Buddha went up to those mendicants and said, "Enough, mendicants. Stop arguing, quarreling, and disputing." When he said this, one of the mendicants said to the Buddha, "Wait, sir. Let the Buddha, the Lord of the Dhamma, remain passive, dwelling in blissful meditation in the present life. We will be known for this arguing, quarreling, and disputing. Hello, Richard and Louisa. Welcome. For a second time, for a third time, those mendicants, the Buddha said to those mendicants, enough mendicants, stop arguing, quarreling, and disputing. For a third time, that mendicant said to the Buddha, wait, sir, let the Buddha, the Lord of Dhamma, remain passive, dwelling in blissful meditation in the present life. We will be known for this arguing, quarreling, and disputing. This is interesting. I wonder if I just want to see if Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation is available on here. No, it's not. It's a copyright. But I remember this. I think this is the first time I'm reading this with Bhante Sujato's translation. And my impression from the Bhikkhu Bodhi translation with the monks were like, get out of it, go away. Don't, we're fighting. Whereas here it seems quite nice. They're saying, oh, don't worry about it. This is our problem. Please be peaceful. Okay, so for a third time, that mendicant said to the Buddha, please remain passive, dwelling in blissful meditation. We will be known for this arguing, quarreling, and disputing. Then the Buddha, robed up in the morning and taking his bowl and robe, entered Kosambi for alms. After the meal, on his return from alms round, he set his lodgings in order. Taking his bowl and robe, he recited these verses while standing right there. This is something that people should make a printout of and put in the office, put in the monastery, right? This is very important. This is words to live by. When many voices shout at once, no one thinks they're the fool. While the Sangha's being split, none thought another to be better. Dolts pretending to be astute, they talk their words right out of bounds. They blab at will, their mouths agape, and no one knows what leads them on. Right? That's wise words. So important. So important to reflect. When many voices shout at once, no one thinks they're in the wrong. No one thinks they're the fool. Most of the time, everybody's the fool. Most of the time. Hello, Manul, Maria, and Bhumika. Welcome. And so now that we're continuing with the verses, if you read the Dhammapada, this should sound very familiar. It's on the first page. They abuse me, they hit me, they beat me, they rob me. For those who bear such a grudge, hatred never ends. They abuse me, they hit me, they beat me, they rob me. For those who bear no such grudge, hatred has an end. For never is hatred settled by hate. It is only settled by non-hatred. This is the eternal truth. So for those of you who, want to learn more about the Dhammapada or kind of wonder how the Dhammapada came to be, well, pretty much every line of the Dhammapada can be found scattered through the suttas. So somebody decided to go through the suttas and put a bunch of verses together, and that's how you have the Dhammapada. So when you read all the suttas, you can see pretty much all of them. I think I remember seeing at least 80%. All right. So continuing on. Others don't understand that here we need to be restrained, but those who do understand this, being clever, settle their conflicts. Very similar to the line in the Dhammapada that comes next. There are those who do not realize that one day we must die. Those who do settle their quarrels. Breakers of bones and takers of life, thieves of cattle, horses and wealth, Those who plunder the nation, even they can come together. So why on earth can't you? So the Buddha is saying, all these people intent on doing bad, evil things, they can work together, but not these monks. Like this is such a wise, this is like a wise barb, right? Buddha is dropping the mic and saying, what are you people doing? You're supposed to be monastics. You're supposed to be doing something good, and yet you're arguing and disputing. This can be reflected on, you're working with people or your family or whatever. It's like people who do really bad things can work together, but we can't. Maybe we can do something about that. It's like a wise reflection, just like the reflection of nobody thinks they're the fool. Like these words are so very wise, very important. Words that you can reflect on daily in all of your engagements. I mean, it turns out sometimes you really reflect on it, sometimes you actually are the one who's in the right and who is the wise one in this situation. But you should never take that for granted. Never should take it without investigation. Hello, Miguel. Welcome. If you find an alert companion, a wise and virtuous friend, then overcoming all adversities, wander with them joyful and mindful. If you find no alert companion, no wise and virtuous friend, then like a king who flees his conquered realm, wander alone like a tusker in the wilds. It's better to wander alone. There's no fellowship with fools. Wander alone and do no wrong, at ease like a tusker in the wild. Again, famous lines from the Dhammapada, but pointing to not being around foolish people. Foolish, unskillful people will only drag you down. So if all you have around you is foolish people, well, wander alone. We'll see what the Buddha is about to do. Because all he has around him currently is foolish monastics. And if you have good, skillful friends, wise, virtuous friends, then you should stick by them. Be with them. After speaking these verses, while standing, the Buddha went to the village of the child salt miners, where Venerable Bhagu was staying at the time. Bhagu saw the Buddha coming off in the distance, so he spread out a seat and placed water for washing the feet. The Buddha sat on the seat spread out and washed his feet. Bhagu bowed to the Buddha and sat down to one side. Hello, Kit. Welcome. The Buddha said to him, I hope you're keeping well, mendicant. I hope you're all right. And I hope you're having no trouble getting alms food. I'm keeping well, sir. I'm all right. And I'm having no trouble keeping alms food or getting alms food. Then the Buddha educated, encouraged, fired up, and inspired Bhagu with a Dhamma talk. After which he got up from his seat and set out for the Eastern Bamboo Park. Now at that time, the Venerables Anuruddha, Nandiya, Kimbala, and Kimbala were staying in the Eastern Bamboo Park. The park keeper saw the Buddha coming off in the distance and said to the Buddha, Don't come into this park, ascetic. There are 3 gentlemen staying here whose nature is to desire only the self. Don't disturb them. Anuruddha heard the park keeper conversing with the Buddha and said to him, "Don't keep the Buddha out, good park keeper. Our teacher, the Blessed One, has arrived." Then Anuruddha went up to Nandiya and Kimbala and said to them, "Come forth, venerables, come forth. Our teacher, the Blessed One, has arrived." Then Anuruddha, Nandiya, and Kimbala came out to greet the Buddha. One received his bowl and robe, one spread out a seat, and one set out water for washing his feet. The Buddha sat on the seat spread out and washed his feet. Those venerables bowed and sat down to one side. The Buddha said to Anuruddha, "I hope you're keeping well, Anuruddha and friends. I hope you're all right, and I hope you're having no trouble getting alms food." "We're keeping well, sir. We're all right, and we're having no trouble getting alms food." "I hope you're living in harmony, appreciating each other without quarreling, blending like milk and water, and regarding each other with kindly eyes." "Indeed, sir, we live in harmony as you say." "But how do you live this way?" It's always a good question. If you see people, a community living in harmony, how? What do they do? How does this work? In this case, I think I'm fortunate, so very fortunate, to live together with spiritual companions such as these. So reflecting on that, they're not around foolish people. They're around good, wise, virtuous friends. I consistently treat these venerables with kindness by way of body, speech, and mind, both in public and in private. The in private thing is so important. It really is, right? Because it's very easy for most people to act kindly when people are watching. But in private, that's when the truth comes out. So it's very important to be. Now, this is why the Buddha says things like, you can't really know a person unless you've lived with them for a long time. I think, why don't I set aside my own ideas and just go along with these venerables' ideas? And that's what I do. So this is a good mindset, at least dependent on the situation. Right? You're part of a group. You're living as a group. You're working as a group. And you decide, I have lots of ideas and I have my own views about things and my own feelings of how things should go. Why don't I kind of loosen that up a little bit? Why don't I not grab on and hold on to those so tightly so that I can live in community, or I can work in community with the other people, right? And then, when there's a meeting or there's some kind of, thing where people have to come together and compromise, then you talk about your views and what's important. But the idea here is that you're not going to be so staunchly holding on to how things should be that's going to lead to lots of quarreling and fighting in the community. Why don't I set aside my own ideas and just go along with these venerables' ideas? And keep in mind also, this is after the reflection that you're with good people, that you're with wise people. You're like, okay, I'm in a good place here. Now I can maybe not hold up. If you're around unskillful, bad people, and they're like, and you want to have good sila, and they're like, all right, let's go kill and rob and rape and all this stuff. And you're like, oh, why don't I set aside my own ideas? No, you should hold strongly to those ideas when they're preserving your sila, right? When you're doing good things. This is why the Buddha, there's only one time where the Buddha approves of laziness in all of the suttas, and that's when laziness in doing bad things. So this is you see that you're in a good group, you're in a good community of wise people or skillful people, and you say, let my own views and opinions not be pushed on in the community. Let me try to let those go so that I can live like with milk and water in the community. And that's what I do. Though we're different in body, sir, we're one in mind, it seems to me. And the venerables Nandya Kimbala and Kimbala spoke likewise. And they added, that's how we live in harmony, appreciating each other without quarreling, blending like milk and water, and regarding each other with kindly eyes. Good, Anuruddha and friends. But I hope you're living diligently, keen, and resolute. So the Buddha's like, oh, that's very good that you're living skillfully in this way, but are you practicing well? Right? Are you practicing in line with the Dhamma? Diligently, keenly, and resolute. These three words you see thousands of times, maybe not thousands, at least definitely hundreds of times in the suttas. Right? This is how one practices correctly. Indeed, sir, we live diligently. But how do you live in such a way? The Buddha asks. In this case, whoever returns first from alms round prepares the seats and puts out the drinking water and rubbish bin. If there's anything left over, whoever returns last eats it as if they like. Otherwise, they throw it out where there is little that grows, or drops it into water that has no living creatures. Then they put away the seats, drinking water, or rubbish bin and sweep the refectory. If someone sees that the pot of water for washing, drinking, or the toilet is empty, they set it up. So this is also a very important section when it comes to community. Notice what's happening here. Everybody knows what needs to be done. And if it needs to be done and they're the one that sees it, they do it. They're living in such a way that there's no feeling that, oh, well, these people are not working. I'm working so much. Why am I bothering with this anymore? Right? This kind of normal group dynamics where you can tell some people avoid work and are kind of not around to do things, and other people end up doing more of the work, and that breeds resentment in the community and all these kind of issues. But here, these monks, and of course, it's a little easier to do this in a smaller group than a larger group because you can hide in larger groups. But in this smaller group, if a job needs to get done, they just do it. There's no calculating in the mind. Okay, well, I did this, this, and this, and this. And another person only did this and this. So really, they should be doing it and all these kind of things, which happens in a group. The first person sees this needs to be done, and they do it. And because the small group is all doing that, right? And if you live with somebody long enough, you see that the person's quality, that is actually what they're doing, then there's just trust. So if you see something, you do it, and you don't have any of that resentment or any of that calculation come up. Am I doing all the work and other people are not? Okay? And there's nothing wrong with that per se. There's validity to this, especially when you think of trying to think of the word, but there's been studies that show, like, for instance, 10% of people do all of the work in a corporation, right? And this actually goes from the smallest to the largest, even to like galaxies, 10% of planets are such and such. It's a really interesting scientific dynamic that people have found. But still, if you're trying to have harmony in a community, if everybody trusts each other enough that they can just do the work and not have that calculation and resentment, that is a feat that is rare. right? And again, easier to do in smaller groups with people you actually know and think are wise and can trust. If someone sees that the pot of water for washing, drinking, or the toilet is empty, they set it up. If he can't do it, he summons another with a wave of the hand, and they set it up by lending each other a hand to lift. But we don't break into speech for that reason. And they're doing it in a kind of noble silence, which is interesting because in one of the monastic rules, actually the Buddha comes across a group of monks who took a vow of silence, and he calls them foolish and makes the rule that Buddhist monastics cannot take a vow of silence, which is but here you have, they're not necessarily have taken a vow of silence, but they're not speaking if they don't need to. Right? And every 5 days we sit together for the whole night and discuss the teachings. Right? So they speak and they discuss what's important to discuss at regular intervals. This is how we live diligently, keenly, and resolute. Sadhu, sadhu, Anuruddha. Good, good, Anuruddha, and friends. But as you live diligently like this, have you achieved any superhuman distinction in knowledge and vision worthy of the noble ones? And a meditation at ease. Well, sir, while meditating diligently, keen, and resolute, we perceive both light and vision of forms. But before long, the light and the vision of forms vanish. We haven't worked out a reason for that. Well, you should work out a reason for that. Before my awakening, when I was still unawakened but intent on awakening, I too perceived both light and vision of forms. But before long, my light and vision of forms vanished. It occurred to me, what's the cause? What's the reason why my light and vision of forms vanish? It occurred to me, doubt arose in me, and because of that, my immersion fell away. When immersion falls away, the light and vision of form vanish. I'll make sure that doubt will not arise in me again. While meditating diligent, keen, and resolute, I perceive both light and vision of forms, but before long my light and vision of forms vanish. It occurred to me, what's the cause, the reason why my light and vision of forms vanish? It occurred to me, loss of focus arose in me, and because of that my immersion fell away. When immersion falls away, the light and vision of forms vanish. I'll make sure that neither doubt nor loss of focus will arise in me again. While meditating, dullness and drowsiness arose in me. I'll make sure that neither doubt nor loss of focus nor dullness and drowsiness will arise in me again. While meditating, terror arose in me, and because of that, my immersion fell away. When immersion falls away, the light and vision of forms vanish. Suppose a person was traveling along a road and killers were to spring out at them at both sides. They'd feel terrified because of that. In the same way, terror arose in me. I'll make sure that neither doubt nor loss of focus nor dullness and drowsiness nor terror will arise in me again. While meditating, excitement arose in me, and because of that my immersion fell away. While immersion falls away, the light and vision of forms vanish. Suppose a person was looking for an entrance to a hidden treasure, and all at once they'd come across 5 entrances. They'd feel so excited because of that. In the same way, excitement arose in me. I'll make sure that neither doubt, nor loss of focus, nor dullness and drowsiness, nor terror, nor excitement will arise in me again. While meditating, discomfort arose in me. I'll make sure that neither doubt, nor loss of focus, nor dullness and drowsiness, nor terror, nor excitement, nor discomfort will arise in me again. While meditating, excessive energy arose in me. That's like if you have coffee and then sit down to meditate. Excessive energy arose in me. And because of that, my immersion fell away. When immersion falls away, the light and vision of forms vanish. Suppose a person was to grip a quail too tightly in their hands, it would die right there. I'll make sure that neither doubt, nor loss of focus, nor dullness and drowsiness, nor terror, nor excitement, nor discomfort, nor excessive energy will arise in me again. So really what this is kind of like the 5 hindrances plus, right? The Buddha is kind of going over a variety of different things that can happen in your meditation that will take you out of samadhi, will keep you from going deeper into like jhanas. So these are things that you pay attention to in your meditation, and you understand how they arise and how they cease. While meditating, overly lax energy, laziness, tiredness, etc., arose in me, and because of that, my immersion fell away. When immersion falls away, the light and vision of forms vanish. Suppose a person were to grip a quail too loosely. It would fly out of their hands. I'll make sure that neither doubt nor loss of focus, nor dullness or drowsiness or terror or excitement, nor discomfort or excessive energy or overly lax energy arises in me again. While meditating, longing arose in me. I'll make sure that these don't arise again. While meditating, perception of diversity. While meditating, perception of diversity arose in me. I'll make sure that neither doubt, nor loss, nor focus, nor dullness and drowsiness, nor terror, nor excitement, nor discomfort, nor excessive energy, nor overly lax energy, nor longing, nor perception, nor diversity will arise in me again. While meditating diligent, keen, and resolute, I perceive both light and vision of forms. But before long, my light and vision of forms vanish. It occurs to me, what's the cause? What's the reason why my light and vision of forms vanish? It occurred to me, excessive concentration on forms arose in me. And because of that, my immersion fell away. When I understood that doubt is a corruption of the mind, I gave it up. When I understood that loss of focus, dullness and drowsiness, terror, excitement, discomfort, excessive energy, overly lax energy, longing, perception of diversity, and excessive concentration on forms are corruptions of the mind, I gave them up. While meditating diligent, keen, and resolute, I perceived light but did not see forms. I saw forms but did not see light. And this went on for a whole night, a whole day, even a whole night and day. I thought, what is the cause? What is the reason for this? This is the most, even if you get confused about what is the Buddha talking about, light and this and this and this, the framework here is the Buddha is investigating the contemplation, understanding what is the reason, why is this arose? And as you investigate why, you see why, and then you can understand how to abandon it, how to cause it to cease. I'm going to do a little bit of ellipsing here. Yeah, this is pretty much to the end. I thought, I've given up my mental corruptions. Now let me develop immersion in three ways. I developed immersion while placing the mind and keeping it connected, without placing the mind, but just keeping it connected, without placing the mind or keeping it connected, with rapture, without rapture, with pleasure, with equanimity. When I had developed immersion in these ways, the knowledge and vision arose in me. My freedom is unshakable. This is my last rebirth. Now there are no more future lives. That is what the Buddha said. Satisfied, Venerable Anuruddha was happy with what the Buddha said. All right. So we have about 25 minutes if needed for questions. So you can put questions in the chat. Check the chat, see if there's any right now. Hello, Kalsang Dang. This is a monk from Nepal. Welcome. So if you have any questions related to what we read, you can put them in the chat. If you have any questions related to outside the topic, well, tonight we have monk chat at 7:30 p.m. So you can bring the questions there. We'll give it another minute or two to see if anything pops up in the chat. And if not, we can call it a morning.
I've got something. I really wonder about your thoughts on the cause of the quarrel at Kosambi. It's not related in this the sutta that you read, but in another sutta that's in the Vinaya also, about the water dipper in the restroom. Yes, okay. Mm-hmm. It's quite striking because reading this is amazing. The quarrel can start with something so trivial.
Yeah.
And it's about whether or not, as I recall, it's whether or not the water bucket, I said the dipper, but whether or not the water bucket was filled appropriately after someone used the restroom. Mm-hmm. And then the commentaries say, we've read secondhand, I haven't read the commentaries, read secondhand, the commentaries say the reason for this is that then there was some debate over whether or not it was an offense. And the person who did it changed his mind. And then so monks kind of on the other side accused him of lying, which I thought was very interesting. So then suddenly it went from something about a water bucket to a very basic question, serious question of ethics about lying and something I've borne in mind over the years. And I wonder if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, Ajahn Wade has brought up a similar thing from the monastic rules where a quarrel broke out over a very minor thing. The reason for the quarrel, I guess, is not really explained. But, I guess from my own experience of being kind of practicing de-escalation and non-conflict and all of these things, usually it's a small, silly thing that is the spark that starts the fire. But all the tinder is there, right? All of the not seeing each other with kindly eyes and all of like the core, like it's all under the surface. And then a bathroom spoon causes it to erupt, right? So this is if that happened with Anuruddha and his friends, do you think that would have no, it wouldn't have come into a quarrel. They would have probably had a meeting and discussed, well, what do you think this? And then they would have came to some conclusion. There's underlying factors, I think, that a small spark usually explodes it all. Matthias says of the same kind. So the situation with the first group of monks remains unresolved. I mean, I'm sure it resolved somehow. Maybe it broke up. They all just went their own ways. Who knows how it resolved, but the Buddha did the right thing. It's like when you have a couple, like a 2 or 3 year old, and they're all having tantrums. Sometimes you just got to let them be. I'm not going to feed your tantrum. You can cry all you want. Brian says, I've heard we should cultivate great faith and great doubt. How much doubt is healthy? At what point is it a corruption? In the suttas and in Theravada, I've never heard anybody say cultivate great doubt. I wonder if that's a kind of Zen. What? Zen practice. All right. Yeah. So I have no idea. Like, doubt is not really seen as a positive thing in the early texts. Now, if you're talking about inquiring, questioning, investigating, maybe even some skepticism, yes, that's all in the early text. But cultivating great doubt is seen as a hindrance. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know the Zen context of that. You probably have to get it from them. Greg has a question. What does perception of diversity mean in this context, and how is it a hindrance? So when you're trying to practice anapanasati, you're trying to develop samadhi, you're trying to have the mind be immersed on a single object. But if all kinds of things, diversity in when we're talking about this in the suttas, we're talking about a variety of different things. So, you're trying to sit down to meditate, and you smell something, and you hear something, and you feel some bugs on you, and all of these things are happening, right? Or even just in your mind, if you're going deeper, all kinds of, maybe there's flashes of light and all kinds of things are happening, and that can actually act as a distraction. So that's what this means here, perception of diversity. All right, I think we're good for the day. So, Sukhi Hotu, friends, which means may you be happy and at ease, practice well and be well. May you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again, which should be tonight at 7:30 p.m. for Monk Chat. So you can come and bring your questions. Have a good day.
Okay.